Compassion and forgiveness. The real magic within. Ilara, a girl whose hair shimmered like spun moonlight and eyes held the vibrant blue of summer skies, lived in the village of Whisperwood, nestled beside an ancient, whispering forest. Her life, though simple, was filled with the gentle rhythms of nature, the rustling of leaves, the cheerful chirping of birds, and the comforting murmur of the nearby stream. She spent her days tending to her small garden, her fingers coaxing life from the earth, and her evenings listening to her grandmother's captivating tales of forgotten magic. But the tranquility of Whisperwood was a fragile thing, overshadowed by the presence of Morwen, the witch who resided in the heart of the Whispering Woods. Morwen was not a creature of storybook wickedness. She wasn't a hag with a cackling laugh and a cauldron. Instead, she was a creature of chilling beauty, with skin as pale as winter snow, hair like black silk, and eyes that shimmered with an unsettling amethyst light. Her magic was not one of fire and brimstone, but of cold, calculated precision, a manipulation of the very fabric of the world. The villagers, though wary of Morwen, generally gave her a wide berth. They left offerings of honey and wildflowers at the edge of the woods, hoping to appease her. They whispered stories of her abilities, how she could twist shadows into beasts, weave illusions more real than reality, and silence the very songs of the forest. They spoke of her loneliness, her isolation in the heart of the woods, and understood, though they dared not voice it, that her coldness stemmed from a deep, unyielding sadness. One fateful autumn evening, as the leaves painted the forest in hues of fire and gold, a peculiar sickness fell upon Whisperwood. The crops withered, the stream ran dry, and even the birds fell silent, their vibrant songs replaced by a hushed despair. The villagers grew weak and pale, their once joyful spirits deflated like spent balloons. Desperate, they gathered at Alara's grandmother's cottage, their faces etched with fear. Alara, with her grandmother's hand resting gently on her shoulder, felt a surge of responsibility. Looking into their fearful eyes, she knew she couldn't stand idly by. "I will go to Morwen," she announced, her voice trembling yet firm. Her grandmother, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern, squeezed her hand. "Be careful, child. Morwen's magic is powerful, and her heart, colder than the deepest winter frost. But you're brave, Alara, and you have a light within you that even she may struggle to extinguish." Alara took a deep breath, the scent of autumn leaves filling her lungs. She gathered a small basket filled with the last blooming flowers of her garden and a honey cake she had baked with her own hands. She then stepped into the Whispering Woods, the sound of her footsteps crunching on fallen leaves the only sound accompanying her. The deeper she walked, the more the forest changed. The vibrant colors of autumn faded, replaced by an oppressive gloom. Twisted trees clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers, and the air grew heavy with an unnerving stillness. Finally, she reached Morwen's dwelling, a castle of black obsidian that seemed to absorb the very light of day. With her heart pounding in her chest, Alara approached the heavy oak door. She hesitated for a moment, gathered her courage, and knocked softly. The door swung open, as if by an unseen hand, revealing a dimly lit hall adorned with intricate tapestries depicting fantastical creatures and forgotten lore. Morwen was standing at the far end of the hall, her posture as rigid as the obsidian walls. Her amethyst eyes fixed on Ilara, holding a mixture of surprise and suspicion. "What brings you to my domain, little mortal?" she asked, her voice like the rustling of silk against cold stone. Alara, though intimidated, met her gaze. "My village, Whisperwood, is suffering, Morwen. The land is barren, the water dry, and the people are growing weak. I came to ask if you are the cause." Morwen's lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Cause? Why would I wish harm on such insignificant creatures?" "I don't know," Alara admitted. "But many things have happened since you came to reside in these woods." Morwen remained silent for a moment, her gaze distant. Then she turned away and started walking further into her castle. "Follow me," she commanded, her voice softer. Ilara hesitated. Then she followed Morwen, her bare feet silent on the cold stones. They walked through corridors filled with strange, otherworldly objects, crystal balls that pulsed with light, jars filled with swirling mists, and books bound in what looked like human skin. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, the the center of which was occupied by a giant frozen pool. It was a breathtaking sight and incredibly unsettling. The ice was incredibly clear, and within it, Alara saw images of vibrant gardens, laughing people, and a stream merrily flowing. "This is the heart of the woods," Morwen said, her voice tinged with a strange sadness, "and my pain is freezing it from the inside." Ilara had heard tales of Morwen's past, of a forbidden love that had been rejected, and a heart that had been shattered by betrayal. It had been said that Morwen's sadness was the source of her magic, and now, looking at the frozen heart of the forest, Alara understood. Her magic was not born of malice, but of pain. "You're not a bad witch," Alara said, her voice full of conviction. "You're just hurt." Morwen turned to look at Ilara, astonishment written across her face. She had never thought of herself as anything other than a bad witch. "But how do I stop the pain?" Morwen whispered, her voice barely audible. Alara stepped closer, the honey cake trembling in her hands. "By letting go," she said, "and by accepting help." She offered Morwen the cake. Morwen stared at it, as if she couldn't understand what was in front of her. Then she hesitantly accepted. Ilara offered the flowers she gathered, and Morwen looked at their bright colors and inhaled their scent deeply. A small smile flickered on her face. It was the first time anyone had offered her kindness in years. Alara spent days with Morwen in the obsidian castle. She told her stories of Whisperwood, of the simple joys and the quiet beauty of nature. She helped Morwen tend to the strange and delicate plants that grew within her castle walls. She listened as Morwen, hesitantly at first, began to share her own story, her voice cracking with the weight of long-held grief. Slowly, the ice in the frozen pool began to thaw. The light returned to the obsidian walls of the castle. The shadows no longer seemed to writhe, and the very air began to hum with life. Morwen watched as the ice melted, and her amethyst eyes filled with a mix of awe and hope. Finally, the heart of the forest began to pulse with warmth, and the land of Whisperwood started to recover. Flowers bloomed once more, the stream flowed freely, and the songs of birds filled the air. When Ilara returned to Whisperwood, she found the villagers joyous and healthy, their once pale faces glowing with life. They celebrated her return with songs and feasting, but Alara knew that the true victory had taken place within the heart of the obsidian castle. From that day onwards, the villagers no longer feared Morwen. They would often leave her gifts at the edge of the woods, tokens of their gratitude. And sometimes, when the moon was full, Alara would visit Morwen in her castle. They would talk, laugh, and share stories of the world. The witch was no longer a recluse, but a part of Whisperwood, not just of the woods, and one whom they had grown to love. The story of Alara and Morwen proved that even the coldest hearts can be thawed by kindness, and that even the deepest pain can be overcome with hope. It was a reminder that the true magic lies not in the wielding of power, but in the strength of compassion and the courage to forgive. And as the sun set over Whisperwood, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink, Alara knew that the lessons she had learned would stay with her forever, guiding her path through the wonders and the challenges of life.